One moment of silence, please, for 14-year-old me who has just died at the hands of the emotional damage provided by this new Hunger Games book, Sunrise on the Reaping. Well, 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 after more than 15 years, it has finally come to this. Haymitch's Games, a new Hunger Games novel. The teenager inside of me is going absolutely bonkers right now. There's so much to analyze here. There's so much to recontextualize. So I thought I will make a video for you doing just that. We will be analyzing the quotes at the beginning of the book. We will be talking about 18th century philosophy at some point. It is all connected. That is the sound of someone who made way too many annotations while she was reading this. There will of course be spoilers in this video. Let's begin with a blank slate. We have our main character, Haymitch Abernathy. We don't know yet at the time of filming this who is gonna play him as a child. So I just have this picture of movie Haymitch, but I gave him a little hat to signify that he's a child here. I hope I'm not ruining this wall the way I ruined the other walls. You've seen all of my other like analysis wall picture videos. You know I always tend to ruin the wall with all the little sticky tabs. Hope I don't ruin this wall. Yeah. So the thing about Haymitch in this book is that immediately we are hit left and right with parallels to Katniss Everdeen. Katniss Everdeen, of course, our lovely main character from the original trilogy. They are both 16 on their reaping day. Specifically, it is Haymitch's birthday. Like, his birthday is on reaping day, which is July 4th. Very subtle, Suzanne Collins. They both have a little sibling that they really care about. Katniss has Primrose, but Haymitch really cares about his little brother, Sid. They both have a single mother because their father died in the mines. They have some kind of illegal activity going on outside the fence of District 12. Like, the moment that Haymitch like crawled under the fence and mentioned that he like goes under the fence to go outside of District 12, I was like, oh, am I reading the original Hunger Games again? Katniss goes outside of District 12 to hunt, and Haymitch goes outside of District 12 to bootleg alcohol, which he doesn't drink, of course. I'm not a drinker myself. Ooh, there's really something about reading a book where you know it's gonna end with this man being a huge, like, pessimistic, cynical alcoholic that has not a single shred of hope in his eyes and his entire family dead, and then the book just starts with him being pretty, like, you know, like, just a little guy. Honestly, he was such a dude bro. Every time he was like, yeah, you know, like, I'm doing it for my girl back home. She's waiting for me. I'm doing it for my girl. I was like, wow. He's such a little 16-year-old boy. You know how it's gonna end, and that's what hurts. And another parallel between them is that both of them go to the Hunger Games, but actually we found out that both of them were never actually reaped. We know the classic story of Katniss Everdeen, who volunteered as tribute for her sister Primrose, but Haymitch actually isn't like reaped at all. In his Hunger Games, the 5th Hunger Games, there's going to be double the amount of tributes because that's a little fun surprise from Snow. 2 boys get reaped. One of them is Woodbine Chance, but he runs away the moment he gets reaped, and for running away gets by the peacekeepers, which upsets Haymitch, and he actually kind of starts a fight with the peacekeepers, and it is this act of rebellion that makes the Capitol think, okay, so, well, I guess you're going. So they both end up in the Hunger Games because of like an act of rebellion in some kind of way. It's going to become clear why it is so important that there are so many parallels between Haymitch and Katniss. I am gonna put a little string here. You can't even see the string, can you? I really feel like that is what all of my past wall analyses missed, is completely useless kind of vague strings between the pictures. You know, that really sells it if you just put a bunch of strings in there. I need a red string, do I not? Yeah. Hell yeah. Now I really look like a conspiracy theorist. Look, Mom, I made a connection between 2 things. After the reaping, all the tributes can take like a little token into the arena. Hamish receives a flint striker from his love, Lenore Dove, which looks exactly like this. This little ugly thing from the cover. I'm gonna be honest, every time I looked at this cover, I was like, why did they make it look like that? It looks so bad. But now I understand what it's supposed to be. It's a flint striker. Again, very subtle. Suzanne Collins. On one hand, we have a songbird. On the other hand, we have a snake. Lenore Dove says they are both survivors. And this is a great little callback to the general theme of the entire series. It's why the fourth book is called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This entire series of the Hunger Games is just about this ongoing battle between the rebels, the songbirds, and the capital, the government, the authoritarian people, the snakes. The songbirds, the rebels, are the mockingjay, which is the whole symbol of the rebellion. The covey people, the musicians that live around District 12, they are all songbirds, like Lucy Gray, who is also a rebel. Katniss Everdeen, who can sing really well, like a little songbird, also a rebel. All the characters are constantly singing songs of rebellion, like little songbirds. In this book we have Magno Stift, who is the capital designer for the District 12 tribute. He loves snake patterns. He has like living snakes as earrings. Pretty cool, to be honest. The capital created body double for Luella, which we'll get to, is constantly surrounded by snakes, kind of symbolizing that she is like a capital version of the original character. So it's very symbolic that Lenore gives Hamish this songbird and snake flint striker. And you know, let's talk about Lenore Dove for a second, okay? She's not actually a dove. She is the covey girl that Hamish is madly in love with, and she is the one that he has to leave behind as he goes to the games. Also, I don't think it's a surprise that her second name is Dove, the songbird. Very subtle, Suzanne Collins. Actually, a little bit before the reaping, Lenore and Hamish have a conversation about Hamish's birthday being on reaping day. This conversation seems really innocuous. I actually completely read past it the first time, but it actually touches on one of the major themes of the book and also one of the 4 quotes at the beginning. Lenore throughout the book is the one that's always hopeful. She says, "Can you imagine the sun rising on a world without a reaping?" To which Hamish answers, "Not on my birthday. I've never had one that came without a reaping." "No, listen," she says earnestly. "Think about it. You're saying today's my birthday and there's a reaping. Last year on my birthday, there was also a reaping. So every year there will be a reaping on my birthday. But you have no way of knowing that. I mean, the reaping didn't even exist until 50 years ago. Give me one good reason why it should keep happening just because it is your birthday." So Hamish here makes the mistake of thinking, well, every year on my birthday there's been a reaping, so of course there's gonna be a reaping on my birthday all years coming from now. Lenore disagrees with this honestly kind of strange logic from Hamish. She says you can't count on things happening tomorrow just because they happened in the past. This is the moment where Lenore Dove, a 16-year-old character in a young adult book, casually explains 18th century philosophy to us readers. What happened in this conversation is a good example of the ideas of 18th century philosopher David Hume, who is royally quoted at the beginning of this book. David Hume was a philosopher who is known for criticizing our logic about causality. He said if you push a ball and it starts rolling, you assume that you pushing that ball caused the ball to start rolling. But David Hume says that we don't know that. You don't know that for sure. You're just assuming that. You don't know what's actually happening between the ball and you. That is his famous problem of induction. Just because every day you see the sun rise doesn't mean that, logically speaking, it is going to rise tomorrow. You can maybe assume it, there's a high probability, but you don't know for sure. Or, as he says in his quote at the beginning of this book, that the sun will not rise tomorrow is no less intelligible a proposition and implies no more contradiction than the affirmation that it will rise. Sun might rise, sun might not rise. Or like Lenore Dove said, you can't count on things happening tomorrow just because they happened in the past. Basically what Lenore Dove is trying to say here is that just because there has always been a reaping doesn't mean we should just blindly assume that there's always going to be one. There may be change, and if you do not believe that there can be change, then you also won't fight for it. That's philosophy. This girl's a little philosopher. Now, in this whole part before the actual Hunger Games begin, we get to see a lot of characters that we know of from the original trilogy. Names that are being revealed. Notably, we finally get the names for Katniss's parents, Burdock Everdeen and Astrid March. As you may know, Suzanne Collins doesn't mess around with naming her characters. There's always like some meaning behind it. So I looked up their names. We all know that Katniss is a plant, like a root vegetable, and Primrose is of course a flower. Astrid is also a plant. It is a clade or subgroup of flowering plants, which include flowers like daisies, sunflowers, jasmine, and, well, primrose. Which means that primroses are part of the Astrid clade. And they're also mother and daughter. Quite literally in like plant terms. Kind of. I don't know how plants work really. Burdock is also a plant that is part of the Astrid clade. It is a green plant that is mostly used for its roots, which are edible. Katniss is actually the only plant here that is not part of the Astrid clade. Does that mean she's like a bastard child? No, I don't think so. I just think it's like symbolic to show Astrid mother Everdeen was like very close to Primrose, of course very close to Burdock as like her husband, but she had a very rocky relationship with Katniss. Katniss, however, is also a plant which is mostly known for having edible roots, just like Burdock. So I don't know, you can interpret this as Katniss being like a bastard child. I think it just means, it goes to show that she had a good relationship with her father, but her relationship with her mother is pretty rocky, whereas her mother was closer to Primrose specifically. Lenore Dove is not just part of the covey, she specifically has the surname Baird, making her related to Lucy Gray Baird, President Snow's love interest in The Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes. Now, Lucy and Lenore are obviously connected through being family. There are some speculations about who Lenore Dove's parents could be, because we know that her mother died in childbirth and that her father is a mystery. So we can speculate a little bit here. So I went through the effort of making a family tree to illustrate this. So we don't know who Lenore Dove's parents are, but we do know that she is like distantly related to Lucy Gray. And we also know that at the headstones of the Baird family, there are 3 Bairds that are laid together in their graves. Lenore Dove, Lucy Gray, and Maud Ivory. We know that Maud Ivory is dead by the time of Sunrise on the Reaping, even though she wasn't that old yet. She was 8 in the Battle of the Songbirds and Snakes. So that means in Sunrise on the Reaping, she would have been 48 years old, but she died. So something happened to her. Could it be that Maud Ivory birthed Lenore Dove at 32-year-old and then died in childbirth? Well, there's not much proof here, but I like the theory. But the best part about this family tree is that we learn that Burdock Everdeen is also distantly related to the Bairds. We know that he is like a distant cousin of Lucy Gray. That means that we now canonically know for sure. People have been speculating about this for years. Katniss Everdeen is related to Lucy Gray. And it makes sense because Katniss can also sing really well. She has perfect hearing. It makes sense for her to be genetically connected to the Covey, to the Bairds. This really makes the Bairds a family of songbirds, a family of rebels, which fits the whole songbirds and snakes theme. It fits the whole songbird mockingjay being used as like a rebel symbol thing. I'm just gonna put a mockingjay here. Woo! Okay, anyway, there's also a bunch of other characters that we are introduced to that we already knew. It's like a whole reunion, or like a pre-reunion, because we actually know them from like the future in like the 75th Hunger Games, so it kind of feels like a reunion, but it is 25 years in the past, so it's like, it's not technically like the original trilogy is the reunion. Anyway, as Haymitch is getting ready for the Hunger Games, he gets some help from familiar faces. We have Wyrus. What I think is cool about Wyrus is that apparently in her original Hunger Games, which was full of like mirrors, she was the only one that could figure out how the arena even worked and how to get past all the mirrors, which I think just really fits her because we know her from the 75th Hunger Games being the first one to figure out that the arena is a clock. She clocked it. Mags is here too. We know that she was the 11th Hunger Games winner, which is actually so interesting because we know that the Hunger Games didn't become the spectacle until after the 10th Hunger Games with Lucy Gray. So I'm pretty sure that this means that Mags was the first ever victor to like go on a whole victory tour. Very important character. Beatty. We know him in the 75th Hunger Games to be the person who knows a lot about like electricity. He comes up with ideas to like blow up the force field and like use the arena's electricity to like make the whole thing explode. And we learn that actually 25 years earlier, during Haymitch's Hunger Games, he was already scheming. He came up with this whole plan of like, hey, this is how the arena works. There's like a whole water tank underneath it. You, Tribute, maybe you can blow it up while you're here. And they come up with this elaborate plan to sabotage the arena once they're in it. Now we get to know a bunch of the other tributes in this 50th Hunger Games as well. I'm not gonna like recap all of them, but of course, as always, there are the careers and then there's the rest of them. There's 4 people from District 12. Haymitch, another boy Wyatt, a girl named Luella, a very, very sweet girl who I only imagine looks like this. She is Haymitch's sweetheart. He just wants to take care of her. This little girl with the little braids. And then the second girl from District 12, absolute icon, Maisie Donner. Maisie Donner is introduced to us as this kind of snobbish girl from District 12 because she's like a little bit more upper class than the other people in District 12. But she very, very quickly reveals herself to be an absolute diva, an icon, because she is constantly making fun of everyone in the capital for having poor fashion choices, calling the careers out for how dumb they are. She is just not taking any of it. She is not letting anyone turn her into this like sweet little girl, and she is standing up for herself. R.I.P. Maisie Donner, you would have loved Joanna. She is also somehow related to Katniss. Not in a familiar bond, but like generally speaking. Because Maisie Donner was really good friends with Astrid March. In fact, it is Maisie Donner who is the original owner of the Mockingjay pin. Like the Mockingjay pin that is like the symbol of the original trilogy. It's on all the books, you know. It started with Maisie Donner, who got it from the Covey. Maisie Donner gave this pin to her twin sister, and then her twin sister eventually gave it to her own daughter, and that daughter is Madge. Madge is a character that is completely cut out of the movies, but in the book she's like the only friend Katniss has. And after Weeping, it is Madge who gifts Katniss the Mockingjay pin, the Mockingjay pin. But we now know that it all originated from Maisley Donner. Or even like, in fact, it originated from the Covey, which I really like because it means that it is this Covey piece of art that somehow miraculously, or might I say luckily, as like a stroke of luck, a stroke of fortune, ended up back all the way to Katniss, who is also a Covey. Who else we got? Oh, of course, how could I forget her? Effie Trinket. I also gave her a little hat to signify that she's a child here. I loved getting a little Effie cameo. I just love her. I'm not gonna go over all of the tributes that are there, but the important thing to note is that they kind of come up with a plan to go against the careers, because the careers are the people from like the richest districts. Even though all of the districts are below the capital, there's still a bit of hierarchy among the districts as well. Some of them are just richer than others, and it's especially the rich ones that love sucking up to the capital and licking their boots. They somehow believe that it is an honor to be able to win the Hunger Games, and they train for it, and they are called the careers. But all the other tributes are trying to kind of band together against these careers, and they call themselves the newcomers. And the whole idea of them is like, yeah, maybe we are not trained, we are not well fed, we are basically at a disadvantage against the careers, but we are with way more, because it's only like 4 districts that have careers. So the other 8, if we are together, we may be weak on our own, but if we stick together, we might stand a chance against the careers. Which is going to be a recurring theme. Now, before they all go into the arena, they always get prepped by their prep team, you know, because you gotta look cute. You gotta have nice nails when you go into the arena. You have to look pretty and smile in front of all of the capital people. There's something interesting about the way the capital people describe the tributes as they are prepping them to become pretty. Haymitch describes himself as, I feel like a skinned squirrel, raw and exposed. And then when the prep team does his nails, one of them, Proserpina, says, you might need your claws. Haymitch says, I wonder if she thinks of my nose as a snout, my hair as fur, my feet as paws. These tributes are regarded as animals by the capital people. Haymitch says this to the other tributes. These people, they don't see us as humans. They try to see us like objects, like animals, something completely below them. Completely at the end of the book, when Haymitch has won the Hunger Games and he's like completely broken down at the Capitol, he says this about himself. Somewhere in the last few weeks, my nails have turned to claws, my hair to fur. He starts describing himself as the animal that the capital people see him as. And when he sees the TV images of his Hunger Games, don't worry, we'll get there, but when he sees the playback of the Hunger Games on the TV and he sees himself in the Hunger Games, he's not even describing himself as an animal anymore. He describes himself as the creature I've devolved into. So why do the capital people do this? Describe these tributes as animals, making them feel like animals even. It is all about perception. If you see someone as an animal, you don't see them as a human anymore, so you don't really have empathy for them anymore. You change the perception, you change how you engage with them. You change the whole interaction. It changes your own behavior regarding them. This is the heart of this book, the central theme of public opinion and propaganda. Wow, that was an incredibly long introduction before finally getting to like the first theme that I wanted to discuss. The Capitol does everything to control how people see them by using propaganda. This starts all the way at the beginning of the book. Everywhere in the city it says no peace, no bread, no peace, no security. Okay, that makes sense, that makes sense. And then no peacekeepers, no peace. No capital, no peace. The capital is creating this idea that the capital and the peacekeepers are necessary for the security of the people, that they wouldn't have any bread and security if it wasn't for the capital and their peacekeepers keeping everything in check. Another view of the propaganda machine we get to see actually already during the reaping. People are filming the reaping because they want to, you know, broadcast everyone to the capital people that just want to watch their little show about children killing themselves. So everything is filmed, and you really get to see the camera people trying to control the narrative here. They are asking people like, oh, can you do your little sad reaction face again? I didn't quite get the shot of that. Oh, can you look a little sadder? In this picture, we really want the capital people to see how sad you guys are. Yes, that is a beautiful tear. We're just gonna zoom in on that a little bit. They're basically fabricating scenes so they can control the eventual narrative. And here's where we get introduced to who I didn't think would be such a huge character in this book. Plutarch Havensby. Plutarch is a character from the original trilogy that we know as first being head game maker, but quickly showing himself as a capital member who is actually part of the rebellion, and he ends up being a leader of the rebellion, and he's also very involved with making the propaganda. In the original trilogy, Katniss has to shoot like propaganda videos, and Plutarch helps a lot with that. And in this book, we really get to see his origins. He started out as a cameraman. Well, is he? I don't know if he was exactly the cameraman, but he was involved with the media of the capital, basically already involved from a young age with creating propaganda. Remember when I said that Haymitch was originally not reaped, but it was someone else who ran away, got shot. Haymitch gets into a fight, and then he ends up having to go. Well, they shot a whole like fake scene where they make it seem like Haymitch is being reaped, and to the capital people, they never even show everything that went on behind the scenes. It just looks like Haymitch got reaped. End of story, nothing happened there. Just like in the original trilogy, Katniss didn't really trust Plutarch. Haymitch also doesn't really trust Plutarch, but Plutarch is trying to kind of warm up to Haymitch, and he says that he's trying to help him by showing him in the most positive light possible. He shows Haymitch that he needs to create a narrative around himself. Just like in the original trilogy, Peeta and Katniss... Oh, I just realized something. Wow, I'm even having realizations. You know, in the original trilogy, Haymitch is telling Peeta and Katniss, like, you need to come up with like a story for yourself. Like, you have to go with the star-crossed lovers narrative. Like, that's what's gonna keep you alive. He got that original idea from Plutarch, who told Haymitch, hey, you need to come up with a story for yourself. And Haymitch decides that he's gonna go for this whole like rascal. I'm a little razzle-dazzle rascal. He comes up with this kind of like asshole-ish rascal character that doesn't really care about anything or anyone, to kind of hopefully gain some love from the sponsors. More examples of how the capital keeps control of the narrative. So because Haymitch had his birthday on Reaping Day, the capital gives him a birthday cake. The cameraman from Plutarch's crew, sneaking his lens over his shoulder to film my reaction, is the cherry on the birthday cake fiasco. Clearly, Plutarch wants to capture my delight so he can broadcast it all over Panem. Look how well the capital treats the tributes, how forgiving they are to their enemies, how superior they are to those district piglets in their stinkholes. Yet again, see the animal comparison there. They're just creating this idea that the capital is being nice to the tributes, and they are hiding the ugly truth. Another crazy thing that happens in this book is, by the way, Luella dies like almost immediately in the chariot rides, which causes a whole like little rebellion again from Haymitch. So what does the capital do to make sure that no one notices that no one sees that something went wrong? The super obvious answer, they replace her with a body double. There's just another Luella just runs in. It's like, hey, I'm Luella McCoy. Jodie style from After the Last Airbender.
I'm Judy. Welcome to Ba Sing Se.
I'm Judy. Welcome to Ba Sing Se.
And the other tributes are like, no, everyone's gonna notice that that's not really Luella. Like, she's giving off weird robot vibes. But the Capitol knows what they're doing, okay? We haven't even, oh my gosh, haven't even mentioned the villain of all villains. He gets to be reached from the bowl as well. President Snow. Bam. All the tributes can say like, hey, people will realize that that's not the real Luella. Like, her friends, her family, they will realize that something is off. But Snow knows that their audience, the Capitol people, they don't care. They're all drunk in the audience. They didn't see what happened at the chariot rides. The people at home in front of their TV, they're not gonna be critical. They're not gonna pay attention to it. So yeah, even though it is like a pretty like flimsy little cover-up, he knows that it doesn't matter because people are so susceptible to propaganda. The people don't want to see the truth. They just want to watch their funny little show. Everyone posting thirst traps of young President Snow in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes movie. I'm looking at you guys. Because let's not forget, the whole Hunger Games thing is insane. Like, you just let a bunch of children play it out in an arena trying to kill each other. That is absolutely bonkers. That is like so beyond anything that anyone could ever enjoy. You could ask yourself, like, how do these Capitol people enjoy it? It's because of the narrative that the Capitol and President Snow create around it. This is what Plutarch says about it. From the Capitol's perspective, the games are the best propaganda we have. You tributes, you're our stars. You carry it out, but only if we control the narrative. Don't let us. Now, what I really like about this book is that it shows that propaganda isn't just something that a government does to keep like its people in check. It is also something that as a rebel you can use to your advantage. Make an audience feel for you. They'll figure out intellectually why you're the right tribute to support. You have to take control of public opinion if you want people behind you. This is at some point going to be relating back to our little boy David Hume, 18th century philosopher, but we'll get back to that. When they are eventually in the arena, Haymitch thinks a lot about how he is going to present himself. Like I said, he is going to be a rascal. Remember I told you about this whole plan with the newcomers? So Haymitch, as the person Haymitch, wants to go back to the newcomers in the arena because they want to stand strong. But he also has this like image of himself that he wants to project to the Capitol people, to the audience, of like this rascal, this asshole that doesn't care about anyone. So he's like, how am I gonna stick to my original plan of getting back to the newcomers, but also appearing to the audience as an asshole who only thinks about himself? Cocky, out for myself, sarcastic, but nice to the other newcomers. I'm channeling all these things so I can present a consistent character to the audience. And I really like this. One thing I've always said about the original Hunger Games trilogy is that I would love to have like Susan Collins's idea on it with what we know now with modern social media, because the original Hunger Games book came out in 2008. Social media was barely a thing unless you were on like MySpace. But I think it's especially relevant now that we live in an age where everyone is constantly thinking about how they want to present themselves to the world because they get to on social media. You can think about what your brand is, what your vibe is. Do you want to be a book girly? Do you want to give clean girl? Do you want to have an artsy girl vibe? Like, people now, I think more than ever, are constantly thinking about how they're basically propagandizing themselves to the world around them. Anyway, I digress. That is what Hamish is doing in this book. He is also thinking about how to use propaganda to his advantage. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Another quote at the beginning of this book is one from George Orwell, where he says, "All propaganda is lies, even when one is telling the truth. I don't think this matters, as long as one knows what one is doing and why." Every party is doing propaganda in some way. You just really need to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Are you trying to overthrow your authoritarian government, or are you just trying to make the tributes look like poor little animals that the capital is taking care of? This is why the third part of the book is called The Poster, because this whole story, it's all about the poster you paint. How do you brand yourself? What is the message that you want to put out to the world? If the capital can paint posters with their propaganda, then so can the tributes with their own propaganda. Maybe the capital controls the narrative, but the tributes are trying their hardest to create their own narrative, to counteract and write their own story. Now, this whole thing of propaganda and influencing public opinion ties back to the other major theme of this book, and that is why submit to government. I don't think I'm saying something really crazy here when I say that the Hunger Games books are a big critique of totalitarian governments, or like all-powerful governments. It all starts immediately with the little song that Lenore Dove is singing at the beginning of the book about geese. She's saying, "They hand the man and flog the woman who steals the goose from off the common. Yet they let the greater villain loose that steals the common from the goose." AKA, if you are a person who steals, you will be punished. But if you are like a greater villain, like President Snow or like a government, and you take like food away from the people, or you take resources away from the people, suddenly no one seems to like care or stand up against it. Like, as long as you're like some kind of greater villain, you can do things that individuals would be punished for. Why does that happen? Why do people allow things like that? That is also a central question of this book, and Plutarch actually asks it. He is talking again to the tributes and to Hamish, and he says, "Why do you submit to it all?" And the tributes say, well, it's because they have guns, it's because they have all the power, to which Plutarch counters, well, you technically could have guns as well. You technically are with way, way, way more, right? There's way more people in the districts than there are in the capital, so it can't just be like a material power thing. Hamish snaps. He says, "It's because we don't want to end up dead. Do you really not see that?" "No, I do," says Plutarch. "I see the hangings and the shootings and the starvation and the Hunger Games, I do. But I don't think the fear they inspire justifies this arrangement we've all entered into. Why do you agree to it? Why do I, for that matter? Why have people always agreed to it?" He is referring to like this arrangement basically that a government has with the people beneath it. The capital as like the rich center and all the poor districts around it. Why is everyone just kind of agreeing to this agreement that we have here? This is a question that a lot of philosophers have asked themselves. It is also a central question in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But in this book, we are specifically focusing on the ideas of, yet again, our boy David Hume. Big quote incoming from him. He had his own answer to the question of why do people submit to government? Especially since, you know, the people at the bottom are with so many. We have the other tributes vastly outnumbering the careers. Then why do they still like accept this power struggle? We have the people in the districts vastly outnumbering the capital. So why do they allow this power dynamic to exist? Generally speaking, the governed outnumber the government. David Hume says this, beginning of the book. "Nothing appears more surprising to those who consider human affairs with a philosophical eye than the easiness with which the many are governed by the few, and the implicit submission with which men resign their own sentiments and passions to those of their rulers. Why is it that so many people just submit to a government? When we inquire by what means this wonder is effected, I love the way people wrote in this time. When we inquire by what means this wonder is effected, we shall find that as force is always on the side of the governed, because they are with way more, so force is on the side of the governed. This is what Plutarch says, like, it's not just like guns and force and numbers, like technically you have more power in terms of force. Force is always on the side of the governed. The governors have nothing to support them but opinion. It is therefore on opinion only that government is founded, and this maxim extends to the most despotic and most military governments, as well as the most free and most popular. So basically here what Hume is saying, that public opinion and propaganda that like comes with it is the thing that governments use to keep their power, to make sure that these many people below them just agree to being governed. And this is why it is so important for the capital to control the narrative, because the narrative, the public opinion, is the only thing, according to Hume, that is keeping them in power. Actually, the arena itself that the tributes go into is a perfect metaphor for how the capital keeps its people in check. The thing about this arena is that everything is absolutely gorgeous. It is a flower-scented meadow full of pretty songbirds, butterflies, grass under your feet. Hamish describes it like this: every sense is being catered to, every element designed to soothe. We're cocooned in soft pleasures as we face our deaths. As long as you can keep people happy, they don't start to ask questions. But what they very quickly find out is that all of these beautiful things in this arena, it's all poisoned. Anything you eat will poison you. Anything you drink will lead to your imminent death. Nothing here is as it seems. The entire arena is basically propaganda, making it seem like something different than it actually is. At some point, Hamish and Maisley, dream team, power duo, run into some porcupine mutts, and they try to come up with a plan to like attack the porcupines, but are completely shocked and surprised when the porcupines start like shooting out their quills like little pincushions. Really funny, like a little Pokemon move. They're trying to fight it, but they don't know how, because the porcupines are doing things that they would never expect a normal porcupine to do. They are literally being misinformed by the arena. So they're trying to think, okay, how are we gonna fight them? And Hamish says this: maybe we're going about it all wrong. Maybe we should try soothing it. And Maisley agrees. I guess you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. So they end up basically giving the porcupines like food and distracting them that way. And I feel like this is one big metaphor for one of the ways that you can like suck up to the government, is by sucking up to the government. One way of trying to defeat a villain like President Snow is by soothing them, by sucking up to them. I think this is what Plutarch is trying to do. That's his strategy. It is what Peter Malark is so good at.
If it weren't for the baby. Let's find out more.
A little bit later is one of the most insane scenes in the book, in my opinion. Maisley and Hamish are running away from two careers that are chasing them, and they run into this open meadow where they see game makers working on the arena, like cleaning it up and mopping up after themselves. Seeing the game makers inside of the arena felt like a fourth wall break. And here's why I found it super interesting. Hamish thinks to himself, I know from experience that mopping's a bottom of the ladder job, so finding a game maker at it seems bizarre. Maisley then immediately, of course, come in with like a banger of a burn. She's like, you must be pretty expendable, you three, getting sent in here to tidy up on us. What I really liked about this scene is that it shows that even within the capital, not everyone is like on the same level. There are people that are kind of on the bottom of the top, basically. They're on the bottom of the capital. Plutarch even alludes to this at some point, kind of implying that not everyone in the capital has it amazingly. Even within the capital, there are power differences, there are hierarchies. But they will, of course, try to forget that by holding fast on this idea that they are at least above the tribute people. They are at least above the district people. Initially, the career girly doesn't want to kill the game makers, but Maisley says, still chasing that sad little dream? Why do you want to hook up with a bunch of capital toadies? Seems like you should be on our side. The careers are basically trying to suck up to the capital. They're catching flies with honey instead of vinegar. That is their strategy. Now, Maisley and one of the career girls killed the game makers. This was like a whole switcheroo thing, okay? This is now the tributes in the Hunger Games not killing each other, killing the capital people, killing the game makers. Absolutely insane moment in my opinion, but Haymitch doesn't do anything. He's like stunned in place. And Maisley's like, why didn't you kill the game makers? You're supposed to be my ally. Whose side are you on? And Haymitch is thinking to himself, my knife was in my hand. The game makers in easy reach. No one better positions to kill them. Plutarch's voice taunts me. The question is, why didn't you? At that moment, Haymitch, even without wanting to, like subconsciously agreed to some kind of power dynamic between the game makers and him. He subconsciously agreed to the idea that he couldn't like stand up against them. And the question is, why? Why didn't he? The answer that this book tries to give us is it's all because of opinion, public opinion, the idea that you have of the capital. Whether this is fear or awe, there's some kind of opinion that you have of the people above you that makes you accept that they are above you and should maybe stay above you. Towards the end of the games, we all know how this is going to end. We knew this from even back in Catching Fire. Haymitch is facing off with a career. The career throws an axe. It bounces back against a force field and therefore hits her in her own head like a little boomerang. But when they're facing off together, it's just the two of them, we see another parallel with Haymitch and Katniss, because at some point Haymitch is like, I'm gonna make sure we both die. He's like, there's gonna be no victor in this games. And it really reminded me of how Katniss and Peeta also decide it's not gonna be one of us dying. They're not gonna have a victor at all when they try to take the berries, so that there is no victor. That's it. The games end. Haymitch has won, even though the last thing he probably wants to do is outlive everyone. And we get to see, like, again, with every scene I'm just gonna be like, well, one of the most interesting scenes about the book. All the interesting things happen at the end. So Haymitch gets to watch on TV the version of his Hunger Games that were broadcast to the capital people. And remember that through the entire book, Haymitch was like super intent on like creating this poster for himself, creating this image of like the rascal, trying to control the narrative. But there, when he sees the finally edited version, he sees that it was all for nothing, because the newcomers tried to make the careers look stupid in the interviews. They cut that all out, nowhere to be found. They cut out all the scenes of solidarity between the newcomer tributes. They edited the scenes in such a way that Haymitch just looks like an asshole instead of a lovable rascal. All the time the tributes spent together is gone. The only thing that gets attention is the violence, the eruption of the volcano, the blood, the gore. Haymitch basically gets the villain cut in a reality TV show. Like, he is made out to be just absolute horrendous creature, as he even calls it himself. In the end, it was all Haymitch's propaganda versus Snow's propaganda, and he realizes here that Snow eventually still had the upper hand. Haymitch hopes that at least the people in the district might be able to realize that this is all propaganda. I hope those in the districts can still see it as the piece of propaganda it is, but there's no telling what they've been fed. How could they know it's propaganda if they don't even have the information to critically come to the conclusion that it might be propaganda? Also, this is the moment that we learn that the entire arena is shaped like an eye. Like a big brother is watching you eye. George Orwell quote at the beginning of this book. Very subtle, Suzanne Collins. If there's one thing that I learned from this book is that Suzanne Collins has the subtlety of an elephant at an ant's wedding. She has the subtlety of my face when I don't like someone and I'm trying to hide it. Everything about the Hunger Games is just propaganda, and the Capitol is controlling the narrative. And this entire book shows us that we didn't even get the full information about Haymitch's games in the original trilogy. There were so many things that we didn't know. I mean, we all assumed that he got reaped, but we learned that he never technically got reaped. That was just the story of the Capitol. We didn't know that there was a whole rebellion operation going on during Haymitch's games as well. We just believed whatever we were told in the original trilogy, aka we believe what Katniss was told in the original trilogy, which means that Katniss believed what she was told in the original trilogy, and that Katniss also believed it. Even though she is a rebel, she was still susceptible to the propaganda, which made us as the reader believe it. And yeah, okay. Anyway, the existence of this book and everything that we learned from this book shows us, the reader, that we were also susceptible to the propaganda, to the story that was told to us in the original trilogy. And the whole big story is contextualized even further by, I think, my favorite scene in the entire book. I did say that like 5 times already now, and this video didn't die. Plutarch and Haymitch have what I consider the conversation of the book. They're talking about BT, and Haymitch says, he's going to overthrow the Capitol, is he? Plutarch says, maybe one day. Haymitch thinks that the fight against the Capitol is pointless. Like he said at the beginning of the book, every year that his birthday comes, there's just going to be another reaping. Snow does indeed land on top. It feels like nothing he does is going to make a difference. But Plutarch says, you were capable of imagining a different future. Like Lenore Dove says, just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it's gonna happen in the future. And maybe it won't be realized today, but maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe it will take generations. We are all part of a continuum. Does that make it pointless? We are all part of a bigger struggle. Haymitch says, you need someone different than me. No, Haymitch. We need someone exactly like you, just luckier, or with better timing. Katniss Everdeen, the Mockingjay, the one that ended up overthrowing the government as a rebel, she was that luckier one, the one that just had the better timing. I have always been like a firm proponent of the opinion that Katniss Everdeen is not some chosen one, some Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter hero. I hate it when people point to the Hunger Games and are like, oh, it's so unrealistic, young adult dystopians, and then there's some 17-year-old that overthrows the government. Like, that's so unrealistic. No. That was never the story. The whole point is that they are all part of a bigger struggle. This rebellion has been in the making for at least 25 years, probably longer. They were already trying to do things during the 50th Hunger Games. It's not like the 74th Hunger Games was the first time it happened. Revolution does not happen overnight. There have been years and years, decades of resistance up until this point. Haymitch was a failed Katniss. Beetee was a failed Katniss. Who knows how many failed Mockingjays there have been in the past 75 years whose stories we don't even know of. Katniss was just the lucky one that was the first to succeed. This is the final parallel between Haymitch and Katniss. They were both Mockingjays, except Haymitch was a failed one and Katniss was the lucky one. The only thing that is vital here is that there needs to be hope. There needs to be the belief that something can be changed, that there will be a sunrise without a reaping, that Haymitch will have a birthday one day without a reaping. Like Lenore Dove says, just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it's gonna happen in the future. That is a flaw in logic, but it's something that the people in power would like you to believe. Haymitch says, I am living proof that the capital always wins, but Plutarch counters him with, you are capable of imagining a different future. It's all coming together. After the games, we get the chapters that I postponed reading because we all know how it's going to end. We know that Haymitch's rebellious being is going to be punished by President Snow. His entire family is killed in a fire. Lenore Dove is poisoned by President Snow. Let's analyze Lenore Dove a little bit more, okay? So we learned that she is a rebel, that she is one of the people that does rebellious graffiti around District 12. I mean, in the end, she is one of the songbirds, and the songbirds in the Hunger Games saga are rebels. Like I said, her name is Dove, a songbird. She gets her name, like everyone in the covey, from a poem, and she gets it from the Edgar Allan She gets it from the Edgar Allan Poe poem about the raven. While Haymitch is remembering Lenore Dove and responding or reacting to her death, he sings the song in his head a lot. The poem follows a main character who laments the death of his love Lenore, just like Haymitch is doing at that moment. And every time the main character in the poem asks himself Lenore, where are you? Are you gonna come back at some point? But then there's a raven on the porch, and quoth the raven, nevermore. Every time the main character asks, will Lenore come back? The raven says, nevermore. The character of Lenore in the poem is never returning, just like Lenore will never be returning to Haymitch. Haymitch calls the raven the unforgiving songbird, which I found super fascinating because it seems to me that the raven here in question is President Snow, making it super clear to Haymitch that his family is never gonna come back to him. When will Haymitch's loved ones be back? Nevermore. But that does mean that Suzanne Collins is likening Snow to a songbird, even though she calls the raven the unforgiving songbird. I expected President Snow to be the snake. So this confuses me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is President Snow a songbird or a snake? And why would he be an unforgiving songbird? But Lenore Dove is gone, and what she always really loved to do was raise geese. And at the end of the trilogy, wow, they are connected by geese. At the end of the trilogy, Haymitch also starts raising geese. We knew this from the Mockingjay prologue, but now we know it is because it reminds him of his lost love, Lenore Dove. I don't know if a geese is a songbird. They definitely make a sound. We see him become the person that we know from the original trilogy. He starts sleeping with a knife. He starts drinking to forget his sorrows. He sees Luella, the original Luella with her cute braids, in Katniss, and that is why he calls Katniss sweetheart all the time. It's not some condescending nickname. He calls her sweetheart because Katniss reminds him of Luella, who was his sweetheart. And he spends the rest of his life, even after the war, raising geese, waiting for the next train. And now we know why. It's not just because he's some asshole drunkard. That was the capital propaganda. It is because he misses Lenore, and when he drinks, it is the only time that he gets to see the ghost of her. Ah! This is foul. This is foul of you, Suzanne Collins. I'm sure there's so many things that I missed. And please continue the conversation in the comments. For now, I'm thinking that this is severely lacking in little red tape. I'm just going to connect some random bits so it looks more interesting in the intro of this video, just to see if you guys have fallen for my false narrative. I mean, I did tell you guys at the beginning that every good analysis video needs meaningless red tape connections, so... Okay, I had a lot of fun making this video. I'm just so happy with the new Hunger Games book. I cannot wait for the movie, and you bet that I will be making a video about that as well once that one comes out. For now, I just want to say I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon in another video very soon. Goodbye!